if you will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Invocation will be given by our city attorney, Louis Vina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pray. Lord, we ask your presence with this assembly this evening. We ask your guidance and leadership for the elected representatives of the city and the city staff who may appear before them, and ask your presence with all of the audience and the other citizens, voters, taxpayers, participants in this evening's meeting. We ask that decisions that will be made will be wise and in the interests of the people, and ask for your presence for all of us. Amen.
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 Thank you, sir. Introduction of my city council members. Ronnie Thompson, on my far right, city councilman. City Councilman Forrest Fleming. Louis Vina is our city attorney. I'm Mel Cohen, your mayor. Sally Sandy is our city manager. Sidney Simmons, city councilman. John Cantrell, city councilman. And Kelly Russell is our recording secretary. And Becky Brinkley is in the corner. She is interpreting for our deaf community. Thank you for being with us, Becky. And again, condolences on your great loss. This time, I'd like to do 3 retiring city employees. Randy Bean, would you come to the podium? And I will read a resolution. Resolution honoring Randy Bean. Whereas Randy Bean was employed by the city of Morganton as a pipe mechanic in the Water Resources Department on July 17, 1995. Promoted to Laborer Foreman 2 on January 11, 1996. Promoted to Supervisor 2 on April 16, 1999. Reclassified as Water and Sewer Supervisor on July 1, 2004. And reclassified as Water Distribution and Collection Supervisor on July 8, 2006. And whereas Randy E. Bean has faithfully served the city of Morganton and the Water Resources Department has given him his time and efforts for the benefit of the citizens of Morganton for 20 years and 3 months. And whereas Randy E. Bean retired from the city of Morganton as Distribution and Collection Supervisor in the Water Resources Department on August 1st, 2015. And whereas the Morganton City Council wishes to officially recognize the contributions of Randy E. Bean and express their appreciation for a job well done. Now therefore be it resolved by the city of Morganton that the mayor present this resolution to Randy Bean, adopted this the 3rd day of August 2015. Mel Cohen, mayor. Sally Sandy, city clerk. Make this in form of a motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Randy. What are you gonna do? Work. Congratulations. You can say anything you'd like. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good luck.
Grayson Morris. Grayson? Yeah, okay. Resolution honoring Grayson H. Morris. Whereas Grayson H. Morris was employed by the city of Morganton as laborer in the Public Works Department Sanitation Division on September 18, 1986. Promoted to truck driver on June 25, 1987. Promoted to equipment operator 1 on March 30, 2000. Reclassified as equipment operator on July 1, 2004. And whereas Grayson H. Morris has faithfully served the city of Morganton in the Public Works Department Sanitation Division and has given of his time and efforts for the benefit of the citizens of Morganton for 30 years and 5 months. And whereas Grayson H. Morris retired from the city of Morganton as equipment operator in the Public Works Department Sanitation Division on July 1, 2015. And whereas the Morganton City Council wishes to officially recognize the contributions of Grayson H. Morris and express their appreciation for a job well done. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Morganton that the mayor present this resolution to Grayson H. Morris, adopted this the third day of August 2015. Mel Cohen, Mayor, Sally Sandy, City Clerk. Make this in form of motion, guys.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Welcome, Grace.
Thank you.
Bill? Resolution honoring Charles W. Bill Perry. Whereas Charles W. Bill Perry was employed by the City of Morganton as Public Safety Officer in the Public Safety Department on January 1, 1996. Promoted to Public Safety Officer 1 on March 23, 1996. Promoted to Public Safety Officer 2 on June 15, 1998. Promoted to Senior Public Safety Officer on June 2, 2001. Reclassified as Public Safety Officer Special Assignment on July 1, 2004. Promoted to Sergeant on June 10, 2005. And whereas Charles W. Bill Perry has faithfully served the City of Morganton in the Public Safety Department and has given of his time and efforts for the benefit of the citizens of Morganton for 21 years. And whereas Charles W. Bill Perry retired from the City of Morganton as Sergeant in the Public Safety Department on July 1, 2015. And whereas the Morganton City Council wishes to officially recognize the contributions of Charles W. Bill Perry and express their appreciation for a job well done. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Morganton that the mayor present this resolution to Charles W. Bill Perry. Adopted this the third day of August 2015. Mel Cohen, Mayor, Sally Sandy, City Clerk. Bill, make this in form of motion, guys.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bill, there's other major, two majors will come forward if they would too. What's on your agenda?
Ride motorcycles and go camping.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for all
Yes,
this.
sir.
You're welcome to say anything you'd like.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Pass your money down, sir.
This is the consideration of the award of service weapon and fire service helmet. I make this in form of motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
And I'm paying the dollar.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
One great adventure by a group of young ladies. The Big League Softball World Series is taking place in Delaware, and our young ladies are up there. And they left last week and flew up there at the expense, of course, of the Little League or the Big League Softball World Series organization. And their families took a bus, and we had several personal contributions, as well as the Morganton Recreation Foundation gave money to offset the lodging of the families that were going up there to see their children or grandchildren play, and it's a great event. And let me tell you that the good words that the families talked about at their Bon Voyage time at Recreation, talking about how Gary Linhart took care of them when they were in Florida. It's an amazing, of course, he's got a lot of experience because our little leaguers went to Florida and went all the way up to Pennsylvania, of course. So again, that's what's happening this week on ESPN, I guess.
ESPN will cover the final games. So they played their first game tomorrow. They were supposed to play Canada on Sunday, but Canada decided not to go to the tournament, which is an odd thing, but they did. So the first game is tomorrow, and if the girls make it till the finals, which will happen next weekend, that will be televised on ESPN. So
12:30
Really awesome.
tomorrow. First game's 12:30
Yes.
tomorrow.
And it's not televised, though, right?
No,
think
it is not.
Okay.
So, but I would ask that the Recreation Foundation
Yes.
donated $15,000 toward that, and would ask that you consider approving the budget amendment so that we can properly account for those dollars. And we know we have several other donations coming in, and we will bring those amendments to you as that happens.
I make a motion to approve an appropriation of $15,000 contribution from the Morganton Recreation Foundation to cover expenses for the Softball World Series event.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, upcoming events, the Back Porch Series, Margot and the Price Tags, August 8th, 7 p.m. Ash Breeze Band, August 20th at 7 p.m., and that'll be the night we will honor Etta Baker, and we hope everyone will be out for that. And then Main Stage Supreme Reflections, August 28th at 7:30 p.m. Farmers Market Saturday behind the old depot, Wednesdays on North Green Street. And Thursday, third Thursday, the Art Crawl in downtown, August 20, 5 through 7. And be the same night as the Etta Baker presentation and dedication. Historic Morganton Festival, the 34th annual, September 11, 12. And that'll be with Parmalee on Saturday night and Thompson Square on Friday night. Two very, very big names in the country music field, and it's free to the public. Okay, moving on, Burke Substance Abuse Network Youth Initiative, Rhonda Cook, Joe Marks, Sarah Durgans. It's all y'all's.
Thank you.
But you better, we know you, most of you, and but it'd be good to introduce yourselves again.
Do we need to tell our address?
No, no.
Joe Marks, and I'm with Burke Recovery and Burke Substance Abuse Network, and we're at actually 203 White Street and 711 West Union.
Okay.
And Rhonda Cook and Sarah Durgans are here to really carry the weight and really tell you what our initiative is, and particularly with the youth, families, and with parents as well. Underage drinking, tobacco use, illicit drugs, and the abuse of prescription medication in the youth is a problem that we experience not only in Morganton, but all of Burke County, and one that we're real involved with, not only on the treatment side, but also the prevention side as well. As policy makers, we ask you to, join us and with our youth, and it takes people from all sectors to really address this problem. Health professionals, business leaders, law enforcement, to protect our young people from these dangers, make the city of Morganton a safer place to live, work, and play. A big part of the solution is empowering youth, and that's in the last 18 months, Burke Recovery and Burke Substance Abuse Network have been involved in the prevention of underage drinking and the prevention of prescription med abuse. And to tell you more about those efforts, and two really instrumental people are Rhonda Cook and Sarah Durgan.
Joe, I will tell you that heard about the program and heard how wonderful it was, and I asked Kelly to get a hold of y'all, and I'm looking forward to the presentation, and any other time you have something new, you need to come to us.
Okay, we'll be back next month.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. We agree that Burke County and Morganton is a wonderful place to live, and we thank you for having us. Not a lot of people want to look at the problems of substance abuse in this area, but we know that it has to be faced because there are a lot of evidence, there are a lot of problems in our area, and we want to lead into finding solutions for those head on. As you all know, because Morganton and Burke County have been very supportive and have acknowledged Burke Substance Abuse Network as a legitimate coalition of 20 community sectors, and at least 500 people have come through these free monthly breakfast meetings. Free might be the operative word there, but at 7:30 in the morning at the community house for several years, and we just get more and more support in the community. It's gone from being a very networking type of organization to an action organization. It's a true community coalition. So in 2014, we were awarded 2 grants that have been very important. One was Wake Forest Baptist's North Carolina's Coalition Initiative, and one was SAMHSA's, and I have to read this, Partners for Success, I can never remember that, which both serve to engage our youth in leadership around both the underage drinking problem and the prescription medication abuse problem. So in acquiring these grants and following through with what was required of us as a community, we had to do some community assessments. And in doing that, we did several surveys. And I'm not going to go through a bunch of data for this meeting, but there were 4 kind of shocking bits of information that we really held on to and we really want to use to further the momentum of this initiative. 37% of youth that were surveyed, and this is as recent as the end of last year, admitted that they can get alcohol from their parents. 36% said that they can drink at home with no consequences. So we also interviewed the parents and did a small parent survey to sort of nail in what was going on their end of the deal. And they were saying that about 27% of them, so that's more than a fourth, said that it was okay for them to allow their teens to drink at home as long as they were there without any consequences. And this does not suit any particular demographic. This is across the board. In investigating what was going on with prescription medication, through the Partners for Success grant and community assessment, we learned that at least a fourth of all youth that were surveyed for this have used or misused prescription medication in some form. We also know that Burke County has the 5th highest drug poisoning mortality rate in North Carolina. So there's a lot already being done. We're not coming up against this saying, oh no, what are we going to do about this problem? There are already a lot of initiatives in place, and many people in this room, sitting up here, council and mayor have been supportive of our efforts. The Sheriff's Department, all of law enforcement, the hospitals and the schools, and many other community sectors are involved. And now it's time to get the youth directly involved, because that is who is being affected. And I'm going to let Sarah Durgans describe the ADAPT movement.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for having us. ADAPT, what it stands for, is a drug alcohol prevention team, and the youth actually coined this term themselves and came up with that and said, we want our team to be called ADAPT. And so the training that Mayor Cohen referred to was back in May, and we had a good group of kids there, and we realized that really to tackle this problem, it's not going to be a bunch of adults, standing and sharing what the facts are and what damage it can do in their development, but it really has to come from the youth. That's where they're going to have the most success. And so what we're trying to do is educate and empower our youth. And I actually gave a lot of our group members a call earlier this afternoon, and they are a busy group of kids. They're some of the movers and shakers, and so they're hard to nail down. But our long-term goal is to get the ADAPT program into every school in the county, and so that each school has a club that's for drug and alcohol prevention. Because the more that we spread this, the more that it's actually going to catch on, and that's how prevention works. And so we just thank you for your support. And as I said, I guess our call to action would be in the future as things come up, just having your support. We have a parents training that we're going to have some of our youth speak at to enlighten the parents about what's going on, and that's August 17th at the hospital from 6 to 8 p.m. And so helping to spread the word on that's always helpful as policies come up and we come before you. Any support that you all can give is greatly appreciated and does go a long way in the communities.
August 17th, what time?
6 p.m. at Grace Hospital.
Where at Grace?
It's in the Lake James Conference Room.
And we have flyers, if I can leave them, and you can help us distribute them, or.
We'll be glad to.
Make sure that you each get one here, pass them along.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Because parents talking to their children is what it's all about. letting children know that it's illegal to do these things is what it's all about. And so creating that dialogue, having that available. You know, one of the things I wanted to add about the training was talk about an exciting and an enthusiastic group of kids that will just turn anybody on and really get them excited. We had a help from a trainer from Winston-Salem, and she was there, and she's just telling the kids, God, I wish we had kids like you there. And one of them just said, well, we'll come and help you. And so thanks to Sarah and Rhonda for really spearheading that, and it was enthusiastic, and it just, you know, revitalized me and got me more excited as well, too. So anytime you want to come be involved in any of those trainings, please do.
Thank you all very much.
so
Any
much.
questions y'all have?
Do you get a lot of cooperation from Channel 2, Compass Cable? Are you able to advertise, let the word out on Compass Cable?
I can address that. We haven't done that, and we really would appreciate that support.
I think Bill's not here tonight, but
Okay.
we'll be sure that Bill knows that, and Bill Harkins is the person to get in touch with, and he can let you know what's available on Channel 2.
Very good, thank you. We'll get them all the information for the
438
parents training.
5353, Joe.
What is it?
438 5353. And that's for Bill Harkins.
Tell them the mayor said so.
Sarah, you had said something about starting clubs. Are you going to start in junior high, high school, or does it matter?
It's actually Jan.
Our group that we trained had both high school and junior high, and so our vision for this is to get that core group really strong. And the great thing about that is we had members from all 5 middle schools. So to maybe first start in the middle school and get clubs at each middle school, and then work up as those kids, you know, transition to high school, have them take it. So that's the long-term vision.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank y'all. You know, we have a exciting DARE program too, you know, that Joey Belanger does, and word's gotten all over Burke County about his,
We were just talking
We were
about that
talking
earlier
about that
this
today.
this evening, yeah.
yeah, and they had a banquet about a week or so ago that a lot of us were at.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll work with you.
Thank
Excellent,
you.
thank
Looking
you.
forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tar Heel Challenge Academy, Jim Bright, recruiter.
Mr. Mayor, council members, appreciate you allowing me to come out tonight and talk about Tar Heel Challenge and introduce the program to those of you who may not be aware of the program. Tar Heel Challenge is, and by the way, there's no action on your part. This is just merely information, sir. Tar Heel Challenge is a program for at-risk kids, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds who have either dropped out of high school, potentially going to drop out, having trouble coping with high school surroundings, or just kids in general that don't forecast graduation. It's a 17-month program broke down into 2 phases. Phase 1 being a 22-week resident phase. They come to live with us for 22 weeks. While they're at the academy, we offer them a chance to get their GED. We teach them life coping skills. I'm talking stress management, anger management, finance planning, family planning, resume writing. Teach them military-style drill and ceremony. It is sponsored by the National Guard, so it's very discipline-oriented, discipline-structured. These young men and women have 24/7 supervision. The academy is located in Salemburg, North Carolina, which is about 40 minutes east of Fort Bragg. The Resource Officer Academy is the next block over. We normally coordinate with Fort Bragg or Camp Butner, take them down there for a week or so and let them run the obstacle course, kind of build up their self-confidence or their self-esteem. We also put them in leadership positions. These young men and women, while they're at the academy, they get $30 every 2 weeks to offset personal items, so mom and dad don't need to send them any money while they're at the academy. Excuse me. They also are required to wear uniforms. The uniforms are issued to them during the in-processing phase of the academy. We have full-time staff down at the academy, full-time kitchen staff, full-time nursing staff, full-time cadre, male and females. We have 160 beds in Salemburg, 140 beds for males, 120 beds for males, 40 beds for females. We also put them in leadership positions, such as first sergeant, section leader, and so forth. They're required to volunteer for 40 hours of community service. Our community service is not a punishment, it's a requirement. They have to volunteer for 40 hours of community service. Our community service consists of possibly helping the fire department with a hot dog sale to raise money, helping up or picking up around City Hall, going down to the assisted living facility, spend some time with those folks, or just, we're constantly working on different types of community services. These young men and women do get free time while they're at the academy. They can play organized sports. They can write as much letters as they want to back home, or they can shine their boots and get ready for the next day's activities. These young men and women, their day starts at 5:30. They get up, they do PT, or physical training, Then, of course, they'll go to chow, breakfast. Then after they get through with breakfast, they'll go to class. And even if they do not focus toward getting their GED, they're still all required to go to all the classes it takes to get that GED. Once they graduate the academy, they're assigned a mentor for 12 months. This is the post-resident phase. This is phase 2. This mentor gives them somebody to talk to, assist them with furthering their education, assist them with employment, or assist them with getting into the military. Any questions? I've got some literature if it's appropriate to pass it around. So.
Yes. How many young people actually go from Burke County?
We actually have one or two every once in a while. So, my high target area is Mecklenburg, Greenville, and Nashville.
Jim, this is a volunteer organization from the students or that are there?
Sir, it is a volunteer program. A lot of times the parents assist them in volunteering, if I'm saying that correctly. But we also take court-ordered kids as well. We've actually had, I actually had from my region 4 that reported in July for the class that just started that were court-ordered.
Court-ordered, okay.
Yes, sir.
So that is in addition, or I guess in lieu of incarceration?
Well, that'd be a good way of putting it, sir. A lot of times, when they apply, if they have, as long as they do not have an adult felony conviction, they can apply to attend the program. If they apply and they've got a misdemeanor, sir, our case managers work with either the probation officer or the court counselor. And, if they apply and they've got a felony pending, a lot of times, the district attorney will lower the sentence and make it a misdemeanor. But, yes, sir, it's a volunteer program. It is federally and state funded.
Okay, that was my next question.
It's 75% federally and 25% state funded. Our second site will open up, our first class will be 11 October in Stanley County, which is right outside of Kannapolis. September of 2014, we've been around for 20 years. We don't have a large pocket of funds for public advertisement, so it's basically word of mouth. And that's what I'm doing tonight, sir, is making sure you folks are aware of this program, because a lot of families look up to you folks and resource officers, police officers, guidance counselors, resource officers, for some type of resource to assist with their young 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, to give them that second chance in life, sir.
You apparently are ex-military.
34 years, 10 months, and 21 days, sir.
I would have never known that by your presentation.
Jim, we appreciate you coming here. Any other questions for Jim? Thank you
Thanks for your service.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you folks. I hope y'all have a
And,
good day.
be careful going back to Spartanburg.
Yes, sir.
Salemburg.
Salemburg?
Ellenberg.
Salemburg.
Where is it?
Wrong
Yeah,
direction.
yeah, wrong direction. Okay. Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting.
That's really just an announcement
Okay.
that we
How
received.
many years in a row? Yeah.
A lot.
Congratulations again to all your people. Drought update, Brad?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for letting me take a few minutes to just give you all a drought update. The Catawba Wateree River Basin covers about 4,800 square miles, and it consists of 11 reservoirs, which Lake James is a part of that. In 2006, the Catawba Wateree Drought Management Advisory Group, which is known as the DMAG, it was formed. It consists of water suppliers, North Carolina and South Carolina regulatory agencies, as well as Duke Energy. And this group basically monitors the drought status of the basin through 3 indicators or drought triggers, and it makes a coordinated drought response recommendation if conditions warrant. Next slide, please. Next slide, Chad.
Hit the space bar, Brad.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, man.
Off protocol here. The tool of choice for the DMAG is the low inflow protocol, and it's a response plan of 5 drought stages, progressive drought stages, based on those 3 drought indicators. The first stage, or excuse me, the first drought indicator that we look at is the reservoir stage. Lake James, which is currently at 96.5 feet, the target elevation that Duke Energy tries to maintain is 98 feet, so we are a little bit below the target stage. The second one is the U.S. Drought Monitor 3-month average, and we also look at several stream gauges throughout the whole entire Catawba Wateree Basin. The 2 that are closest to us are the Pleasant Gardens stream gauge, which is up between Old Fort and Marion, and the Arnie Store, it's the Johns River stream gauge. This is the 5 stages that we look at. Again, they just progressively get worse and worse the drier and drier it gets. This drought monitor is a weekly update from the USDA. There's several federal agencies that have data that input into this model. But if you look at this, the darker color around Cleveland County, Lincoln County, and Mecklenburg, that in Gaston County, excuse me, that's the severe drought category. Portions of that are within the Catawba Wateree. The vast majority of the Catawba Wateree Basin is in a stage 1 moderate drought based on the most recent drought monitor update, which was last Thursday. The next one will be this Thursday of this week. And you can see that about 17.5% of the state is experiencing that moderate drought. 38% are in an abnormally dry category. 61% of the state does not have any drought category associated with it. And if you look at 3 months ago, the whole state was, 100% of the state was non-categorical as far as the drought goes. This first stream gauge, you can see it's the Pleasant Gardens stream gauge on the Catawba River. The little yellow diamonds across is the median stream flow, the average stream flow for the past 34 years. So in the blue line is the most recent trend for the last month. So and that little red dot is just an actual field measurement that was taken. You can see the ups and downs there. Those are from rain events. We have had 1 and 2 inch rainfalls, short-lived though. You can see the trend continues to drop down, and this is the most recent stage where the record low back in 2008 was 20 cubic feet per second. We're currently at 37 cubic feet per second. So this is the water that's actually flowing towards Lake James to fill the reservoir up. The median over the course of 34 years is about 80 million gallons per day, and we're currently in the 24 million gallons a day. So we do have a lot of catch-up that we need to make up. The Johns River stream gauge, again, you can see historically right around 200 cubic feet per second, but we're currently at 93. So we're way below as far as the rainfall getting into that stream feeding the Catawba River. So what does it mean for us? On July 20th, the DMAG, the Catawba Watery Drought Management Advisory Group, met and declared a stage 1 drought condition for the entire basin. And that's voluntary water restrictions. And we want to ask, as a basin, for all of the water customers within the basin to just be mindful that we are dry. Two of the big items that we like to stress to our customers is, if we can, we'd like to irrigate no more than 2 days a week. We try to recommend watering early morning, late evening, to avoid the evaporation during the day, and to reduce vehicle washing. And if you can, don't wash your vehicle at the house. Maybe take it to one of the local establishments. And we always try to recommend establishments that have some type of a water recycling program, so it just doesn't go into the storm drain, or not the storm drain, but the sanitary sewer drain. So that's one of the things that we always try to stress to our customers, to just be mindful. We are in a voluntary water restriction event, so hopefully we'll get some rain. I haven't seen any bushes trying to bribe any dogs or anything like that, so we've got a little bit of time to make up. I think they're calling for an inch of rain over the next week, but still, we're going to need a lot more precipitation to get those drought trigger trends to reverse their course. So,
Any questions of Brad?
thanks.
Thank you, Brad. Municipal Power Agency, Sally.
Nothing at this time.
Consideration of changing the city council date for September. Sally.
The Labor Day holiday, as quite often does, falls on the first Monday in September, which is September the 7th. So ask that you consider changing the meeting for September from the 7th to the 14th.
Motion to change the city council meeting date from September 7th, 2015 to September 14th, 2015.
Have a motion, second, discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, consent agenda, Sally.
The consent agenda before you tonight has 11 individual items included. Those are considered to be routine in nature. Would ask that you consider those in one motion unless someone wants those items pulled off and discussed separately. For those of you viewing at home, that includes 3 sets of minutes, tax releases in the amount of $19,456.69, budget amendment to receive private funds received for the Etta Baker Memorial in $100, budget amendment shifting paving dollars between general fund departments, budget amendment to receive insurance receipt of funds for an insurance claim in public safety, $621, and then a budget amendment for the re-roofing of the Shuey Park Fieldhouse, and that's $10,613. Award of installment purchase contracts for the purchase of public safety vehicles, and that is a 3-year financing, $420,000 at a 1.26% interest rate. Very nice interest rate. To give the staff permission to apply for the 3rd year of the traffic enforcement grant through the Governor's Highway Safety Program. That 3rd year is a 50-50 match. That is included in your budget. That was approved, but we need a resolution to allow us to make that application. To approve, a resolution approving the Greater Hickory MPO be amended, the Memorandum of Understanding, which basically takes all 4 Unifor counties into transportation planning. And then reduction of speed limit on a portion of Independence Boulevard. There is a conflict between what is listed in our ordinance and what the posted speed limit is. It should be 45. And then consideration of reducing speed limits in 3 subdivisions. Currently non-posted at 35 would go to 25 miles an hour, and that would be in Camelot, Winding Creek, and Silver Creek. And I think I hit them all unless I skipped one.
Move you approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. New business, public hearing. Consider amending the zoning ordinance to allow bed and breakfast inns within the neighborhood conservation overlay of the medium intensity district. Sally?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, apparently we're offline.
Did I hit
No
it?
TV. Here we go.
It's working. I think it just wasn't up on these screens, but I think it's working out there.
Okay, Sally.
Sorry.
We're in the middle of the transition to upgrade the council chambers. Remember, that was a 2-year project that we were doing, and so I think the broadcast is working. Okay. We have received a request to amend certain sections of your zoning ordinance. The sections that regulate the location and use of bed and breakfast inns within traditional residential zones is the request. Currently, those are allowed in a low-intensity and a medium-intensity zoning district, and if those districts meet certain conditions. Currently, that ordinance that is in place would prohibit B&B uses within neighborhood conservation overlay areas. And remember, our new zoning ordinance has overlay areas, and I'm certainly not capable of discussing those, but Lee Anderson is. It's very complicated. B&Bs would still be prohibited under the request in overlay areas of low-intensity development areas. So we're not taking away the value of the overlay, as I understand that, but are recommending that they be allowed within low-intensity and medium-intensity areas as long as it's outside of the overlay. Do I understand that correctly?
Lee, you might want to.
You need to talk about this because this is too much for me. I will tell you that the staff and the planning commission did recommend approval of this.
Okay.
They should be.
Put it in layman's terms, in your traditional neighborhoods that's already developed, most of those are in a low-intensity district and a neighborhood conservation overlay, so they would stay traditionally single-family residential. There are a few areas in town along major roadways that have single-family, and they're kind of developed that way, but they're maybe on a major roadway, like Avery Avenue, where you've got a lot of traffic. So it's not ideal necessarily for single-family. So you want to open up other options for use in some of those areas, but limit them because it's still adjacent to traditional single-family neighborhoods. So you don't want,
Wide open.
you know, a junkyard or some intensive use that sits right there. This request would allow in certain areas like Avery Avenue, that's medium intensity. It may also be an overlay, but it would allow a B&B in that location under these conditions. So that's, you could do a home occupation there also. It's very limited the type of business operations you could do. But if you went one tier back and you didn't have frontage on Avery or one of the main roads, you couldn't do it. West Union corridor, it's LID. So you couldn't do a B&B along West Union, you couldn't do a B&B along Bost Road. There's a lot of areas that are traditional that you still couldn't do a B&B in. So basically, that's what the ordinance does.
Within the ordinance, in your materials, section C puts conditions. That's
Yes,
really
there are
the list
conditions.
of conditions that would go along with this request.
That's right. And the conditions haven't changed from what they were that you approved in January for the areas that B&Bs were allowed in. All we're doing is opening it up for one additional area. That's in the overlay area of a medium intensity district.
All right, that was requested by a citizen.
Yeah, Miss Samantha Reed, who is planning to open a B&B on Avery Avenue near the point, near the little mini park. I think it was a bed and breakfast before. She acquired the property hoping to do a B&B, and under our old ordinance, she would have been able to do it. But when the rules changed in January, it prevented the use from occurring. And so she got caught in the transition period. And when we looked at all that, it made sense. It wasn't a major problem to allow it in certain areas that we just overlooked before. So there wasn't a lot of discussion about that specific type.
Okay, so that's the big White House just right behind
beyond.
the point.
But it would open it up in a few other areas as well.
House that you can see now.
Okay. Anyone
Still a lot of
wanting to
work
speak
there.
for or against? Close the public hearing. Council?
Make a motion to confirm that the requested amendment is in compliance with the Morganton Mission 2030 goals and objectives.
Second.
Motion, second discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to adopt a zoning ordinance amendment to allow bed and breakfast inns within the Neighborhood Conservation Overlay, the NCO, of the Medium Intensity District, the MID.
Second.
Okay, motion, second discussion of that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, a public hearing opening up to consider amending the zoning ordinance to allow correctional facilities as a permitted use within the high-intensity districts. Sally?
A request has been submitted by Burke County to amend section 3.1 of the zoning ordinance, which would do exactly what you just said, allow correctional facilities or permit them to be within high-intensity districts. Currently, they are allowed in your central business district, which is a change that you did during that process to accommodate the construction of a downtown jail and correctional facility. And they are allowed within the state institutional district, the Broughton Hospital School for the Deaf area, and the exclusive industrial district. They are prohibited within any corridor overlay, we're talking about overlays again, or the river district overlay. And the county has indicated interest in building a new jail adjacent to the current jail, which is along Government Drive. This is presently a high-intensity district, and this is not allowed in that district currently. So the request is that you consider doing that.
Public hearing's open.
I
Anyone
will
with-
say that it's recommended for approval by the staff and the Planning Commission on a 7-2 vote.
Anyone wishing to speak for or against? Public hearing is open. Close the public hearing. Council?
Move to confirm that the requested amendment is in compliance with the Morgan Mission 2030 goals and objectives.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Move to adopt a zoning ordinance amendment to allow correctional facilities within the high-intensity zoning district.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second, discussion.
Sally, the 7-2 vote from the planning, was there any reason that people felt that it shouldn't go through? Maybe the objection? If I could hear that, maybe I'm missing something.
Lee?
I think there were various reasons. There was a lot of concern on the Planning Commission's part to open up a lot of areas for this type of development. And there was also a lot of concern about why the county commissioners needed a new jail to begin with, which was kind of outside of the auspices of what the Planning and Zoning Commission's purpose was. And so there was a lot of discussion surrounding that and the downtown and all that. So I explained that to them. But they did not feel like they could support, for whatever reason, they chose not to support it. They did not feel
The
good
previous
about that.
amendment was talking about medium intensity districts. This is the high intensity districts, correct?
Right, this is all of our major corridors, coming in and out of town, where all your major retail development, your more intensive type locations. So this, we talked about the old Walmart shopping center, the old Fiddler's Run shopping center, all of those areas would be opened up for this type of use.
And if I may, Lee, I believe it's implied in the materials, but the exclusion of correctional facilities within HID was not something that was a deliberate decision. This was, I believe the word
It
inadvertent
wasn't,
is used.
yeah, we did not debate this particular item because the county specifically asked us to allow it in the central business district, and that one was discussed to allow it, and which we did, and then this request came after that.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, other business. Consideration of a resolution seeking permission to join the state health plan. Sally?
Earlier in the year, there was a proposal considered by the General Assembly that has since passed and been signed by the governor, House Bill 154, allowing units of local government to consider participation in the state health plan. At that time that it was being considered, we discussed it and we indicated interest in pursuing that option because the state health plan obviously is a large group, wields some buying power, if you will, in the healthcare industry simply because of its size. There are 475 active employees and dependents that are currently in the state health plan. 475,000. Sorry, 475,000. That has passed. The bill that passed limits the local government participants to 10,000. So they're going to allow up to 10,000 local governments and their employees to join or consider joining. The first step in the process is to pass a resolution that must go to them, and that would in essence reserve slots for us to consider. The state is not done with all the rules and regulations that will be associated with this. That is going to come later. But right now, if we want to have an option to do this later, we need to reserve these slots.
I move we adopt a resolution expressing the city's interest in joining the state health plan.
Second. Have a motion, a second. Any discussion?
This will not force us to join the state health plan. It gives us that option of being in the health plan, correct?
That is correct. You will have further action that will have to come before you. They don't have all the details worked out yet, and certainly we'd want to know all of those details.
Okay, motion,
So
second.
we got a couple of things that we've discussed, it, goods and bads. Are we gonna give benefit control any opportunity to see if they can come up with a better deal for us? Or are we just gonna eliminate them to start with?
Shoot, no, we choose the one that fits us best, right? That's
Yes,
what-
I
yeah.
mean, are you asking, are we gonna ask them to
Present something?
provide us with another plan to remain self-insured?
Well,
Is that what we're asking?
a
I'm
better
confused.
deal than the state health plan.
We could, and our current provider would want to offer that as well, if that is a consideration that we want to look at once we know what the state health plan is going to mean.
Well, I know
I
that
think.
some parts of the state health plan are not exactly what we were looking for. Let me put it, that's my way of putting it, I guess. Are we gonna give the benefit?
Well, I think the reasoning is that what this does, currently we are self-insured. And that means that the full burden of claims and health care falls on the citizens of Morganton. This would put us back into how we used to have insurance before, which is we pay a premium and we're part of a group. At the time we made the decision to go out of the league's group health plan, because we were seeing 25, 30, 35% annual increases in health care costs because of the history and the experience that was being experienced by that group. We made the decision at that time that financially it was worth the risk for us to assume being self-insured, and that has served us well for the past 10 years. Currently, the attractiveness about something like this is that takes that risk away, and that means that those costs get borne by the group and not 100% on the taxpayers and the citizens of Morganton who are bearing that risk for remaining self-insured. So to go to a group plan, this was one of the, I guess, benefits and opportunities that when we discussed it, when this first came up, we were interested in pursuing. In order to do what you were asking, we would be making a decision to remain self-insured, and we would maintain that risk. And if we did that, then as we do each and every year, we would want to have quotes, if you will, proposals from providers that would do that for us, but we would remain self-insured, and that risk would remain with us. So that is absolutely your choice.
Well, this is just the first step, because we don't know whether we're gonna get accepted or not to start with. They've gotta take us.
They're needing some time to work through all the logistics and the details, because the bill just passed, and they have a deadline imposed on them of October, though, so we are going to know what those are by October.
So if we are not accepted as part of the 10,000, we're still going to be self-insured, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Because you have already, in May, because you know insurance, the way that it works, you have already obligated us to that for the current year.
Okay.
So if we were to change that decision by this, we would be giving notice and all under that contract, but we are already obligated to that for right now.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Consideration of a proposed new ordinance addressing the problem of dilapidated and abandoned non-residential buildings, Sally.
Actually, I think that
That's
will
going to be
me.
Louis.
Louis.
That's okay. You will recall that at the workshop in June, considerable discussion was had about the issue of non-residential dilapidated structures around town. And you instructed me to prepare an ordinance that would address this. That is what is now before you. The proposed ordinance would actually add 2 new articles to the portion of the code that deals with building regulations, which is where we currently have the ordinance, as you know, that you frequently have to address for residential structures. This proposal would in no way change our ordinances on the residential structures. As to the non-residential, commercial, industrial, whatever, the first of the 2 new chapters would basically provide for non-residential structures a similar process to that the building inspector now has for residential, which would mean that if the inspector ordered improvements, corrections, repairs, or demolition to be made of a structure, and the owner did not do so, then the building inspector would come before you for authorization for the city to proceed to do that. The second chapter that would be proposed to add would create an alternative approach, which would involve the council designating what are called community development target areas, in which dilapidated structures have created blighted conditions. The standards for the inspector to issue an order under this are slightly different from the other chapter, and there would be a difference in the lien procedure. If the city had to carry out demolition and removal, the lien for the cost of that would apply not only to the property in question, but to any other property that owner had in Morganton. Now, I do emphasize that on that chapter, before you could use that, you would have to designate physically certain target areas, which presumably the city staff would recommend to you. So that's what the 2 changes would be. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I make a motion to adopt an ordinance amending Part 9, Chapter 2 of the City of Morganton's Charter and Code of Ordinances by adding a new Article G titled, quote, abandoned or unsafe non-residential structures, end quote, and a new Article H titled, quote, community development target areas for non-residential structures, end quote.
Second. Motion second, discussion.
We would designate an area sort of like we designated the redevelopment area.
Yes.
It would be this blighted area.
Yes.
And if someone a property owner within that area, and we couldn't, that this property owner would not agree to get it back up to standards. And we did it, and it cost us $50,000 to do it. We could put a lien on that property that was cleaned up, but any other property that that property owner has in the city of Morganton.
Other than the person's private residence,
Okay.
but any other, certainly any other commercial property or rental property or whatever.
And anytime any of that property were sold, that lien would be put in place.
Correct.
If we can catch it.
Well, yeah.
Well,
That's
if
right.
money's gonna change hands,
Well, the lien would remain whether it was, yeah.
Right.
Or you could, or, although you rarely have done this, you don't have to wait for a sale. I mean, you could initiate a foreclosure the way a tax foreclosure goes, if it was enough money to make it worth your while to do it.
Louis, I'm not sure this is part of this discussion, but CBDG monies could be used for this
That is my understanding. Lee could probably answer that better than I could.
to, okay. Non-residential.
Non-residential or residential, if it meets the low mod requirement
Okay.
in that area. Protecting that low mod area.
That would have to meet the HUD requirements
requirements.
for that, in addition to being a community development target area. Those aren't necessarily the same.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Right, Louis?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll second it.
I think we already
I
have.
think we,
We already had it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Consideration to award a contract for the Bushell Street pedestrian improvement project. Sally?
You'll recall back in June, the meeting of resurfacing, I like to refer to it, when we awarded a lot of contracts for resurfacing that are beginning to happen now. We talked about the opportunity for improvements at the Bushell and Avery intersection, and what is going on there based on the Department of Transportation coming, improving that intersection and putting in a true signal, not a blinking signal like we have. The second piece of that is being funded with some HUD dollars and some CDBG dollars, and the beautification piece of that and the pedestrian improvements piece was bid separately from the asphalt piece, and that is what is before you tonight. We received 4 bids. Those are to install 13 curbed islands, create 24 new parking spaces within the 2-block stretch between East Union and Patterson Street, and then install pedestrian and handicap crossing improvements at the intersection, allowing for safer crossing, in particular when we get DOT's work done and the new signal in place. And that is what also trees and shrubbery within the islands proposed as a part of this. The 4 bids were received. The lowest responsible bidder was Little Mountain Builders of Maiden, North Carolina, and that is in the amount of $118,015, and would ask that you consider awarding that tonight.
I move to authorize a contract with Little Mountain Builders of Maiden, North Carolina for the Bushell Street Improvement Project for here in Morganton.
second.
Okay, we have a motion, second, to discussion.
Sally, did the Finance Committee have a chance to look at this, or was it already in the budget?
This was already in the budget. We looked at this design and this information and made design changes based on the committee's recommendations, which actually happened in April, or it was earlier in the spring of last year.
Because the street committee decided in July, I think, they approved it.
Yes,
month.
for the resurfacing and all of that. And this was actually, well, the beginning of that was, I want to say it was April. It could have even been March. It was back in the spring.
Just as information about the intersection up here on Avery Avenue, where we'll be getting lights there from DOT. Now, will this also include this pedestrian that you've got so many seconds to get across the street, like we have on this corner down here? Do we know that? Do we know?
My understanding is that we have pedestrian crossings.
Great.
I mean, it should be like a fully improved, my term, a fully improved intersection.
We're not paying for that.
Right.
And that's DOT's cost.
That
The long arms and the
pedestrian. Great, thank you.
This is the work that we're coordinating with their project, though, so that it's all done. And then there's a section of programming in the entitlement money that is for public improvements and infrastructure improvements and that sort of thing, and that's what this is coming out of.
What's the schedule on this?
AF.
Yes.
Enough said. Call the
You let us
question.
see a full blooded light there. They're stopping on the caution light.
It'll be really nice to have that intersection, a real
Yeah.
stoplight
It's about,
there.
it's taken a long time, 30 years to try to get anything. Very dangerous. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay. Consideration of consent to assignment of Yanni's lease, Sally.
That's also Louis.
That's me again here, Mr. Mayor.
You're gonna have to start telling me when you start switching.
Sorry, I'm sorry. All right, the city, as you know, has a current lease agreement with Yanni's Family Restaurant, Inc. for the building at 112 West Union, or most of the building anyway, which actually continues on its terms through 2032. That agreement provides that it may be assigned, the lease may be assigned, but only with the consent of the city. Yanni's has been in discussion with Mr. Elliott Stevens, whom I see is here tonight, about potential sale of his restaurant operation, and they have entered what I would call a letter of intent about doing that, and have Yanni's Family Restaurant, Inc., through its attorney, has now requested the city to consent to assignment of the lease. It is important to note that the lease very explicitly says that a condition of entering into it is the personal involvement of Yanni, John DeMarhos, in the operation, and therefore that any change of ownership of Yanni's Family Restaurant, Inc., or in any way an assignment of that is treated as an assignment of the lease, so therefore you have to approve it. At this point, Mr. Stevens and Yanni's have not finalized their agreement, so the proposed assignment is conditional on them doing that. And in fact, the proposed, if you adopt this resolution, would say that it's conditional on them reaching such an agreement by October 1, 2015, so that this is not completely open-ended. It's also conditional on several other things that are spelled out, including that Mr. Stevens would personally guarantee the performance of the lease. My understanding is that he has created an LLC or a corporation, but I believe an LLC, that would actually take over the lease rather than him individually, so he would be, as Yanni has done for his corporation, would personally guarantee the performance. That the other critical things are that Yanni DeMarhos, Mr. DeMarhos, would personally continue to be bound on his guarantee for 6 months, and that they would continue to operate under the Yanni's name for at least that time, although that's my understanding is that's Mr. Stevens' intent anyway, and that Yanni DeMarhos would continue to serve as a consultant for the restaurant for at least 90 days after the assignment becomes effective.
Is that all you have to say, sir?
I'm afraid that's all I have to say, and I do note that Mr. Stevens and I believe his son, who may also be involved in the operation, are here if there were any questions about them.
May I make a few comments before we get a motion? Is that legal, sir?
Sure, sure.
Okay. Let me say, and I probably won't have any bearing on the vote, but I want to make a few comments. Some 2 decades ago, to be exact, 1996, we had a group, John Cantrell was a member of that group, called the Vision Group, that made up of citizens that met to plan a new and more orderly approach to the Main Street program's future in Morganton. These citizens met for about 2 years. The number one recommendation was a full-service restaurant in downtown, and it should be put in the number one downtown location, our city-owned building. We searched for a restaurateur locally with no success, and then began our search beyond Morganton. We found Yanni, and because of his hard work and past restaurant experience, the restaurant has been very successful for over 18 years. Before leasing our city-owned building for a restaurant, the city required that those applying must have adequate restaurant experience, both managerial and as chef. We, as a council, need to keep that same approach as we're asked to transfer the current lease. It is just as important today as it was 18 years ago. The restaurant business has the highest failure rate of any business in America today. We need to safeguard the future of this downtown anchor, our Main Street program, and our successful downtown. Gentlemen, it has no bearing on your vote. I had to say those because I have a distinct, very strong feeling about our downtown Morganton, and I've been around a while that I've seen a lot of things happen, and this is one of the good things that we have been able to retain. And if Mr. Stevens gets this business, I hope you pledge to continue the same kind of service that is there today. Members of the council.
I make a motion to consent to assignment of lease.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion again.
One question about the small business loan agreement. I think there is a small business loan
Yes.
agreement. If Sally or Louis, could you help
Yes.
us with that?
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. You do have the outstanding small business loan agreement with Yanni's, which was granted in the current one about 2011, I believe, Sharon? I think that's right. Under that, and there is no provision in that for assigning it, and Mr. Stevens is not seeking it, and Yanni is not seeking to assign it. In other words, it would remain in place. Now, the thing about that is, under the terms of that agreement, if Yanni's makes all the payments as scheduled up through, and I believe, Sharon, it's March of 2016, and only barely 6 months away, then the entire balance of that loan is forgiven, becomes a grant, and that's means 75% of it is forgiven. Certainly from talking to Yanni's attorney, I anticipate that he will be paying that off, although he would not have to on the face of it. But that's between Yanni and the city.
And there's no prepayment penalty.
There's no
No
prepayment.
prepayment.
But the second condition is that the business has to be operational.
That's correct.
That's the priority position.
I should have mentioned that. The business must remain open. Of course, Yanni's, my understanding is that it would continue to be that way. As a practical matter, Yanni it would be remarkable if he didn't pay it off, because he gets forgiven $30-some thousand in
That
obligation.
program is set up that basically if you make the 5 years payments on time and remain in business, then 75%, and that's the standard for those loans.
Yeah, it's a standard.
Because it's really a job creation program through the Main Street Solutions grant funds.
Has anybody talked to Yanni about, or John Damaris about his intentions on this? Is this, I'm assuming he intends to pay it? I'm assuming.
On the loan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've spoken with his attorney about it, that's my understanding, but I don't know what his specific plan is.
Don't know if his plan is to pay it over those 6 months. Well, I guess it's 7 months right now. This is August. Or to pay it off in one lump sum.
But if he chose not to, we would go after him, just like he ended anybody that does not fulfill their, so.
That's right.
That's correct.
And Yanni's gonna, if we approve this and the two parties close their deal, Yanni will have money in his pocket that he could pay it right then. Do
that
you
is
know,
correct.
Louis, what that amount might be for the next?
It's $381 a month, I believe, so.
It
Oh,
is.
so 400.
So-
we're
$100.
talking
It's, yeah,
Less
the
than
amount,
$3,000.
exactly. The amount he has to pay to get the balance forgiven is small.
$2,400
But it still only counts if the business operates.
It is operational.
through March. Right.
That is correct.
That he can pay, but if he's not released the default until
Right. It
That is
doesn't get
correct.
his 75% forgiveness until the March date goes and comes.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
well, that gives Mr. Stevens some leverage, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, in one way, but then not really. Now, I think we all have been made aware of the business plan that Mr. Stevens has put together. That's in written form, and it also mentions some of the contingencies that may occur, and he has put in his proposition that, what his action would be if some of these things happened. And we see that Mr. Stevens has not been engaged in this, but he appears to be a successful business person in Hickory, lives in, I believe, Caldwell County. His bank has told us in written form that he is a good customer, and there are sufficient balances in the accounts of his businesses, and there have been no collection problems that they're aware of, and money has been taken from savings or from a loan that will be financing this transaction. And so Mr. Stevens looks prepared. He hasn't been in the kitchen in a long time. His son hasn't had much experience cooking professionally. Those are negatives, but the stability in his past seems apparent. And if you take the personalities out of this, it looks like a good business proposition. What's a worst-case scenario? If we did not approve this, we're taking away from Yanni the opportunity to reward him for almost 20 years of operating a successful business downtown. Is that a good practice for us as a city council? We're put in a position to evaluate the future, and how do we do that? We're put in a position that's not in the job description of a city council. We're here to govern, not to manage. We, in instances where there's money at risk, we look to our staff for advice. Is this a good deal? Well, I think it's a good deal for Mr. Stevens, because I think the rental rate on this building is probably less than market. Now, I believe the McGipsy family, if we wanted to sell this, you guys would have first right of refusal. But we're not considering that right now. So we still own the building. Nobody has made us an offer to buy the building. You guys want to buy it back? But, well,
You ready for the question?
sir,
Are you through where you want us to call for the vote?
I've said my piece.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple comments. Of course, this is a big decision, and the mayor as well pointed out how serious the council is looking at this situation in regard to our downtown district. We greatly value our downtown district, and we greatly value those leaseholders and businesses in the downtown district, and we want them to be successful. We will realize that, to me, apparently, Mr. Stevens is quite serious about operating this business to the tune that he is, for the first year, he's putting $160,000 in this business, plus the inventory that he's purchasing, which is $15,000 to $20,000. So he certainly, I hope, has the intentions of getting in there and making this business work. If not, he's going to lose his shirt, quite frankly. So I'm hoping that his intent is going to be that he will be successful should the council approve this. To me, it's a big deal on both sides, on his side and the side of the city, because we want anybody that takes this venture, this successful business, and we're hopeful that it'll continue to be successful. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposed. Okay, next item is one vacancy on the board due to the resignation of Sandy Turner. Thad Ure. You hear that? Thomas Ure has expressed interest in serving on the Board of Adjustment. I make a motion that we accept Tom.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, I want to make a statement. We're still here, guys. We still got a meeting. And I think this is very important to rehash a little bit of something that's going on in Morganton now since last year. And it's a closing of the Bushell Street situation. In April of 2015, the county submitted a formal request to the city asking for the closing of the block of Bushell Street behind the current courthouse for the construction of the county's projected 256-bed jail. This request was made without providing any traffic study or other objective evidence in support, as we had been requested months earlier by the city. Morganton has not recently, if ever, closed and abandoned the right-of-way of any major thoroughfare. Because of the permanent and unique nature of this request, it was initially presented to 3 different standing committees of City Council, so that all members would have opportunities to consider and comment before the May 2015 council meeting. At those committee meetings, the mayor and all 4 councilmen indicated they opposed permanent closing of this block of Bushell Street. Council members asked to meet the county to discuss the jail project and how the 2 governments could cooperate going forward. The city manager therefore contacted the county through its manager, Brian Steen, to suggest first that the county agree to hold off on presenting the street closing request at the City Council's May City Council meeting, because council was unanimously opposed, and second, that representatives of the county meet with the city manager, Mayor Cohen, Councilman Thompson, to further discuss possibilities for the construction of the jail in downtown Morganton. The county declined any such meetings and directed the city to proceed immediately with the request to consider the closing of a portion of Bushell Street. At the May 4th council meeting, the mayor and all 4 council members voiced their opposition to closing the street, but repeatedly expressed their desire to compromise. If the county would consider a smaller jail or a multi-story structure or other changes. County Commission Chairman Johnny Carswell and County Manager Brian Steen in this room argued in favor of closing the street. Under questioning by the council, the county's representatives acknowledged that they did not know how many jail beds the county currently used, and that they planned to rent out their excess beds to the state to raise revenue to help pay for the downtown jail. They explicitly stated that the county would not consider any other size or design options for the downtown jail, and that the proposed one-story, 256-bed jail was the only proposal the county could use. When it was suggested that the city would consider closing part of the very wide street, the county manager responded that they would need all of the extra space for safety. Chairman Carswell stated that if the city would not close the street, then the county would have to look at other options. For the record, the Burke County Commissioners never mentioned the courthouse relocation in any discussion, including in the comments made at the May 4th City Council meeting. There was no mention of it in the county manager's office on August 20th, 2014. No mention of it at the September 11th, 2014 public meeting of the City Council and the Planning Zoning Board. No mention of it at the September 22nd, 2014 County Commission meeting. No mention of it in the discussions between September and the April street closing request. In fact, the county had been openly discussing a new jail for many months and had paid an architect substantial fees for designs for a jail downtown without even mentioning in public any thought of moving the courthouse. Only after the city's May 4th action did the county begin raising that possibility. So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, if the county had indicated that not closing Bushell Street would lead to a discussion to move the county courthouse out of downtown Morganton, would the city council have made a different decision? Honestly, I don't know. It's entirely up to the county commission whether and where to build a jail or a courthouse. Likewise, it is entirely up to the city council whether it is in the city's public interest to close a public street. At this point, the city council just wants to make clear the background for its decision on this matter and to reiterate that it remains perfectly willing to collaborate with the county on planning for a new jail or other facilities in downtown Morganton. I ask each and every county commission to pause. And again, I ask them, let's talk and not obligate our citizens, young and old, to a $30 to $35 million debt. Thank you. City council members, anything you want to add?
I'd like to mention that last week I met with the trustees of the Burke County Public Library, and they expressed their appreciation to the city of Morganton for the contribution to the their budget for this upcoming year that we're in, which I believe $232,000, which is about 1.25 cents on our tax rate. And I'd like to, as a member of this Board of Trustees, thank each one of you for approving our budget that allows us to participate in the public library system in the county. It is a very valuable asset.
Very good. Anything, members? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.